アングルピング
Hey yo, what it do, gamers? So, your boy's been playing a little bit of the Crew at Motorfest, and honestly, the game's really surprised me. Motorfest definitely has issues of its own, but goddamn man, this game is such a vibe. For a while now, I've been fiending for an open world racing game that isn't Forza, or whatever the hell the new Need for Speed games are supposed to be. Something that's just okay having a little bit of fun, but also something that takes itself slightly more seriously. And this game is exactly what your boy's been looking for. After recently playing Need for Speed Underground 2 for the first time, and as a long-time fan of racing games in general, it pisses me off to always have some sort of catch when it comes to these open world racing games. The maps either tend to be pretty boring and end up having vast areas which just contain literally nothing, the handling model is complete arse, or maybe the presentation is just a bit too family friendly and has no personality. And throughout the years, me and my friends just defaulted to Forza when it came to online racing games, as it had some of the best handling, best visuals, and was probably the only online open world racing game at that level for the time. Which is a shame, because it's safe to say Forza has its own issues, but that's all changed for me with the arrival of the Crew Motorfest. So, Ubisoft decided to do a cheeky little 5-hour demo for Motorfest, and from first impressions, this game seemed like it had everything that I'd been looking for. We finally had a racing game with a huge city environment to cruise through, on top of some of the most gorgeous natural landscapes I've seen in a racing game to date. Meaningful customization, where you actually need to earn your parts and rewards, and can feel the difference in your car upgrade to upgrade. Not just spinning a wheel after every mission and being randomly given the best supercar in the entire game, or being able to buy the best tunes for cars immediately as you get them. The handling model too is, in my opinion, the perfect balance of simulation and arcade controls for me. I might sound crazy saying this, but it honestly felt like it handled kinda similar to how Need for Speed Underground 2 felt for me after playing it very recently. The cars feel very weighty and can easily lose control if you're not paying attention, a little bit like a sim, but it can also be a lot of fun, and it can be very forgiving with stuff like its nitro, as you can correct some of these small mistakes and pick up some much needed speed at the press of a button. It also feels like there's just a hell of a lot more effort and variety put into this game's cars and playlists, from drag races, boat races, bike and plane races, or even just Formula 1 stuff. It honestly does put Forza to shame. And before I get into the specifics, the Crew Motorfest is by no means a perfect game. It's in fact far from it, to be honest, and I will get into some of its catches later on, but I just wanted to start this video off with some of the things that I really enjoyed so far, and some of the reasons why I think I'll be playing this game for quite a while to come. Alright, so to start things off, let's talk about this map. Goddamn, this motherfucker is dense as hell, and still somehow bigger than the maps found in the Horizon games. Each district and area in the Crew Motorfest brings its own unique feel and flavour to the table, often containing completely unique buildings and areas such as temples, docks, highways, jungles, mountains, and it just makes exploring it feel so unique and refreshing the entire time. My biggest problem with the recent Forza games is all the maps just feel very bland and repetitive. There's far too much open empty space, and so many of those areas just feel exactly the same. I was actually recently watching a video where people were driving around the Forza Horizon 5 map, and if you just skipped through the whole video, you literally couldn't tell the difference between 95% of the different areas in it. And you could maybe argue that's like 40% of the case in Motorfest, but it looks like, generally speaking, this game has solved the problem of areas looking too familiar. I cannot tell you how happy I was to boot this game up for the first time and almost immediately being greeted with a huge ass city area to cruise through with my boys, and I knew I was in for a treat right off the bat. As we explored more and more and started to complete some of these playlists, the open world really does begin to open itself up to you. So once you complete a playlist, the game will start to spawn in collectibles for you to find out in the open world, and I honestly found that these can take you to new places in areas that you've probably already been to 100 times before, but I would find myself saying, damn, I had no idea this was here the whole time for so many of these collectibles. Just when you think you're done exploring an area, there always seems to be something extra hidden in the nooks and crannies to drag you back in almost around every corner, and even today when I still log on, after about 100 hours of gameplay, I still find new areas I still haven't been to, which in my books is extremely impressive. Another cool thing about exploring this world is that the game will randomly spawn in some treasure boxes into the map, and when you start to get close to one of these points, you'll start to hear a beeping noise that gets more frequent as you get closer to it. And these little boxes basically encourage you again to go out of your way and explore your nearby surroundings. The treasure boxes contain things like new visual parts to customize the look of your car, parts to upgrade performance, a little bit of money, or a lot depending on the treasure rarity, and it again just really adds a lot to the loop of exploring and ultimately being rewarded for it in meaningful ways. It makes just simply cruising around with your boys, doing not a whole lot, so much fun. And once you complete a playlist, you'll also unlock some extra progression rewards themed around that playlist that you've just completed. One of the nice things about this is the extra rewards can be some really damn nice cosmetics like smoke trails, neon underglows, or some really nice window tints, and a lot of these rewards are locked behind tasks that encourage you to engage with the open world mechanics, like doing speed traps, slaloms, photo ops, finding treasure, or simple things like cruising around in a formation with your friends for X amount of time. All of these little things add up and just make being in this world feel so rewarding, and it always feels like there's something to be doing or getting on with. But if you really want, you can just cruise around and you'll still be rewarded on some level, which I think can be appealing for a lot of different people. Some of the playlist challenges can be a bit of a ball ache, but we can get into that a bit later. The map here is arguably my favourite feature of the whole game outside of the driving itself, and the way it works into the challenges and rewards is really doing it for me at the moment. Okay, so I'll be the first to admit I'm not a huge car guy. Like, I do like cars, but I don't really know shit about them. I just know that when them motherfuckers rev, it sounds gook. And when you rev a car in this game, goddamn, you can fucking feel it. I'm not 100% certain that the engine sounds in this game are entirely realistic, but damn it, they hit all of the right notes for me. When I'm using my wheel setup, feeling and hearing the rumble of my engine, it just takes the immersion to a whole other level for me. I'm constantly enthralled by the sound design, and it can make things feel so much more intense than they probably realistically are. The Ivory Tower sound team have absolutely knocked it out of the park with this game, and the sound design still blows me away after all the time I've spent with the game so far. Even things like the high pass filter that's applied when taking jumps, or just the impact slams, get me every time. You may not notice things like this whilst playing every race, but they are a constant source of dopamine and continue to make races feel even more engaging after all this time with the game. The way the sound propagates through environments too is such a nice little detail. It's by no means groundbreaking or anything, but you can really get this sense of scale when inside tunnels and buildings. The way it reverbs just really tickles my ears, and I am constantly amazed by how immersive it can be as a full package. Even other small things like hearing the waves crashing up onto a beach or the slow rustling of leaves on trees make driving through this map absolutely serene and incredibly immersive. The handling in the Crew Motorfest is by definition simcade. The cars here are weighty and need to be reeled in at higher speeds or whenever hitting bumps, but you can also do things like larger than life drifts, hitting ramps at crazy speeds, or slamming your nitro off into the sunset as you breeze past your opponents. I really enjoy the commitment Ivory Tower have made ultimately to having fun in these races while still having a level of groundedness to the game. You still need to respect and learn to control your car, but my god, you can have some fun whilst doing so. So each of the cars here feel extremely different from the last and makes jumping through all of these different vehicles a blast time and time again. For example, drift cars obviously do what they say on the tin. You can easily slide into drifts and fling your car sideways around corners, or if you need some speed for a speed trap, a dragster might be your best option. But be careful if you need to turn, because those motherfuckers do not. Or maybe you just want a well-rounded race car, and depending on the flavor, you can go for street tiers or straight up racing cars. And I'm generally glad that Ivory Tower have made a commitment to keeping each category feel mechanically unique, and it definitely adds so much value to owning multiple cars in different tiers. So I started playing this game on a controller, pretty convinced that the wheel support wouldn't be all that, and I was definitely enjoying my time with the game, and I still play on controller on occasions when I can't be asked to set up my wheel, but let me tell you what, the wheel elevates the driving in this game so much. I know it isn't top of the line or anything, but feeling the force feedback of my G920 pull on my wheel whilst I slip into drift around a corner is a feeling that I've yet to match in any other Simcade racing game. The cars respond to exactly what I want them to do with the wheel, and I don't know if I've just gotten better with my wheel, but I still feel I can be competitive online with a wheel, as opposed to Forza. This game feels like it caters to wheel users slightly more to me, but again, this could just be because I've gotten so much better with a wheel over the years, and finally we have 900 degrees of wheel rotation in first person. This may not seem like a big deal at first, but driving in first person is a big deal for a lot of people, and seeing your character only being able to turn the wheel 360 degrees when you can do 900 in real life is honestly kind of a deal breaker, and I'm glad that audience have finally got what they deserve, and it is crazy that the Horizon games still haven't fixed this. Although I will say that the newest motorsport game in the Forza series does actually contain this, so I'm hoping Forza Horizon 6, please don't let us down. To give some slight criticism here, my biggest complaint so far with the handling has to be when you launch your car off a ramp. It just feels like the gravity is a bit too strong, and I think a lot more could be done to maintain your horizontal momentum. But all in all, I think that Ivory Tower have absolutely knocked it out of the park with this game's handling. To put it simply, the customization in the Crew Motorfest is brilliant. From your hood to your bumper, you can customize the look of your car to be exactly how you want. We have wide body kits, tints, neons, hoods, skirting, spoilers, and hundreds of different rims. One of my favourite parts of this game is customizing a car to look exactly how I want, and one of my favourite things about car culture in general is how everybody can have their own unique car. I love seeing people express themselves through their slabs of metal and carbon and seeing exactly how they like to put it together. It can be a little glimpse into the personality of whoever is driving. Customization has always been a big part of racing games, but I do feel often let down by the amount of visual mods that we can make in games. But in the Crew Motorfest, it feels like they've really focused on this quite a fair amount. I hate to be that guy again, but it really did remind me of my time with Underground 2 and the plethora of options that you have to make each car feel wholly unique. The Crew Motorfest customization, again, isn't perfect. We are still lacking the option to equip some small things like a normal, plain underglow, and I do think a couple of extra parts could be added to each of the customization categories, but I think for the most part, Ivory Tower have nailed giving us the tools to make each of our whips feel wholly unique. And on top of this, what I love about the customization is that a lot of the nicer cosmetics really have to be earned. As I touched on earlier, you need to complete playlist challenges to unlock the nicer cosmetics like smokes, tints, and neons. And the fact that these need to be earned as opposed to just farmed out with credits makes earning and wearing them feel a bit like a badge of honor. The fact that I had to work to make my car look like this adds a lot to the customization and makes it that much sweeter. In terms of car variety too, I also think that the Crew Motorfest is the new king. and personally this is purely from a mechanical standpoint. So, whilst Forza does technically have a wider variety of unique cars, the feel between each of them can often be very homogenized. This might also be due to a lack of variety in playlists in Forza, but one of the best cars for off-roading in Forza Horizon is the Aston Martin Lola. I mean, what the fuck is that all about? I feel like all of the cars in Forza can really just do too much. One car can be tuned to do everything, which in itself could be seen as a benefit. And trust me, I do see the appeal, but I personally like all of my cars to feel unique. For example, I have two RX-7s in Motorfest, one for Street Tier 1 racing and one for drifting. And in my mind, these are two completely different vehicles, despite sharing a make and model. I really enjoy how each tier can be used to tackle different tasks, and it makes expanding your car collection a lot more meaningful and more valuable outside of the intrinsic reward of owning some nice cars. It goes without saying too, but variety is the spice of life, and the fact that we can own, customize and tune other vehicles like planes, motorbikes, boats just makes the game feel like it has way more variety than Forza. Even if technically, on a car basis, that isn't true. Playlists in the Crew Motorfest are generally a pretty damn good time. From scenic cruises showing off this gorgeous map, or neck-to-neck toge drifts down a steep mountain, I think Motorfest has a little something for everyone. Hell, even bikes and Formula 1 get their own playlists here, and they're actually a lot of damn fun too. So much of my time in this game has been spent tuning my cars up for the plethora of races that you can do with friends, or even just to see how well my car performs against 5-star AI, simply because it's so enjoyable to run through time and time again. It's so nice to come up with a build and run through a championship just to see how well it fares against the AI. The amount of races in this game dwarfs what is found in the most recent Horizon games, and the amount of curated content really does matter to me in a racing game. A bit of a no-brainer really, and whilst we are still lacking an event creator, I have a feeling that we might see that come in a later update, just like we did with the Crew 2. And although the playlist races themselves are well curated and have great theming, the actual tone and presentation to these playlists really does leave a lot to be desired. Almost like clockwork at this point, it's no surprise that the voice acting and tone in the Crew Motorfest is extremely weak. Everybody speaks to you with an overly enthusiastic tone, or are just yapping about shit that you just could not care less about. This is again, unfortunately, another case of turning all the dialogue off to save your ears from bleeding from the family-friendly but slight edge that they've tried to incorporate here. But back to the races themselves, I'm so happy Ivory Tower have decided to keep things a little different between playlists. Outside of the obvious differences in car feel, there are actual mechanical differences between each playlist. In a drag race, for instance, you have to first warm your tyres up, press on the gas immediately as the light turns green, and balance the shifting and boosting to get the best times possible. Me and my friends could legitimately just sit there for like an hour trying to get the best times over and over again, adjusting both our car and our strategy to keep improving our score. Or for another example, in the Formula 1 playlist, you really need to be making pit stops roughly every 2 laps or so, otherwise you'll lose so much grip in your tyres and will end up drifting around those corners. I'd really like to see future Horizon games implementing mechanics like this, just to make the playlist feel a little bit more engaging, and so that they have a more unique feel from all the others. One issue I have here, after completing a playlist, you'll unlock some challenges themed around that playlist. And as mentioned earlier, and don't get me wrong, for the most part I do like this system. You can get a bit of extra money, a new title and cosmetics. Nice, but the issues crop up with a handful of the challenges that make you do specific activities at certain times. I cannot tell you how frustrating it was to complete the Made in Japan playlist challenges, with half of the challenges needing to be done at night time specifically. I really like the idea of the theming that they're going for, but it would be so easy to solve this with a quality of life update so that we could change the time of day. I don't see why something like this couldn't be implemented unless the weather is determined by the server you're currently playing on, but I really do hope that they fix this. So this is the point in the video where things are going to get a little bit more negative. We are going to talk about the AI now, and the AI is pretty fucking bad at points in this game, I can't lie. You'll have to get used to being rammed, and for the AI to be very aggressive. The AI unfortunately in this game really likes to follow racing lines, and even if you ram into them, I feel you nearly always come out worse because of it. I will admit that I think something like the Drivatar system would be implemented really well into the Crew, where AI drivers try to mimic behaviour of players, but I can also see this devolving into ramming central, so I'm not really sure on the balance that they should strike. AI seemingly has no care in the world for you. You may as well not exist on the track as far as they're concerned. It's a shame really, because there seems to be flashes of moments where the AI drivers respect you and don't just try to ram you and shove your car away. But I did find that I would more often than not be fucked over by the AI being too strict on their driving line, and they should really try to avoid the player just a little bit more. Another really annoying thing about this game's AI is the ghost car drivers that you find whilst in the open world. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've been jump scared because of a pack of Ferraris come belting around the corner that I've just taken. From a distance, it's hard to even tell if a car is a ghost car or not. I've rammed into so many things, from jolting my car out of the way for what I thought was a real car, only for it to be a ghost car, and I end up flying off of the road because of this stupid feature. I really don't understand why ghost cars can't be turned off. It's frustrating, unrealistic, and just ruins the vibes of cruising with normal traffic. One other issue with AI is their mathematical use of nitro. You'll be driving through a race event you've started, maybe for the first time, but if you pay close attention, it's like every single one of the AI uses their nitro at the exact same moment. Like they're mathematically calculating the most optimal times to use their nitro, and unless you're extremely skilled, it can sometimes feel impossible to keep up with them. Even turning off the nitro in the custom event settings only turns it off for you, and it is just so stupid. It would be nice if this affected AI drivers too, and would solve that issue for a lot of players. Thankfully, I've managed to get pretty good with the old nitro, so I don't have a huge problem with it anymore, but I can see why it's so frustrating, and I do think it could do with some revisiting. I think that the multiplayer might be the weakest part of the Crew Motorfest. By far my biggest issue with this game so far has been simply trying to play with friends. Whilst it seems to have gotten marginally better since release, I cannot tell you how many times me and my friends will be cruising together, only for somebody to be booted out the crew, or for all of our cars to desync, and everybody suddenly disappearing to that magical island exactly 25 miles away. From what I've seen, this has been a major issue since the Crew 1, and at this point it is just unacceptable. You can't get away with calling your game The Crew if it's such a fucking mission to play with your damn crew. They really need to fix this up. For the first few days, we legitimately could not get into a crew with more than 2 players, and that really took the wind out of our sails. The online experience in this day and age, especially for a game with so much budget, should just be infinitely better. They've really dropped the ball here, but again, it's no surprise as multiplayer always seems to be an issue with open world racing games. Another issue with multiplayer I have is just the lack of normal races. The 2 main modes in the Crew Motorfest are Grand Races or Demolition Derbies. The Grand Races are hectic 20+ person races that span across 3 different car categories, and whilst they are dumb fun, and whilst I have found myself enjoying them, they honestly lack the substance that I'm looking for. Usually I find that I would only like one of the 3 car categories in any of these races, and the rest are usually categories I really don't enjoy racing in. I really don't like off-roading, for example, so being forced to do this just to play online races with randoms is just a complete mess. I'm genuinely shocked that isn't just a normal 8-player match-made race event. In my honest opinion, you should be able to queue up for any of the categories in this game and be able to race that type of car to your heart's content. You can of course do this in normal format multiplayer, no problem, but for match-made events you are really limited to doing the grand races, and this defo needs shaking up for the longevity of its online player base. On the other hand though, the Demolition Derby is genuinely a great time and a fun game mode. The power-ups are fun to use, and it is great wrecking other cars with your monster truck. And the damage model on some of these cars is honestly really impressive, but that's not really the reason why I come to play Motorfest. Other games have done this sort of thing much better before, and I come here to tune up my car and race it, not to destroy it. Overall, I am really enjoying my time with this game. Although I think giving something a score is pretty arbitrary and stupid, I'd probably give it a 7, maybe an 8 out of 10 on a good day. It is a brilliant spin on Horizon's formula of open world racing games, and dare I say that they've actually outmatched and brought some serious competition to the genre. Honestly, it's not a huge surprise, considering a lot of these developers come from the Test Drive Unlimited series, and you can really see a lot of the shared DNA here, especially with this one, considering it's set in Hawaii, just like the original Test Drive was. I would love to keep coming back to this game, just to see how it updates and evolves over time. I don't really have any real suggestions outside of them just adding normal 8-player match-made races, adding an event creator, and it would also be nice if they expanded on the on-foot sections of this game. I know I haven't really mentioned it at all, but it is such a small part of the game, but you can actually get out of your car in this game. It seems to only really be utilised in one space, however, the showroom, and I honestly do think this is a complete waste of that control method. I would personally love to see a feature where we can own apartments or houses, visit different buildings as quick travel points, and just letting us get out of our car and seeing our avatars in different spaces. I can see them not doing this, as I don't really think it would add a huge amount for most people, but I think it would be a fun and novel feature to have in this game, and it would be something to further separate itself from the Horizon games. Next year we have Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown coming out, and whilst I am still a bit skeptical about this game, from the bits we've seen so far, I think it could potentially give this and Horizon 5 a run for its money. The gameplay shown off does look good, but does also still look very rough around the edges. It definitely has great potential to outshine both for me, but the new developers of the series are still yet to prove themselves, so I don't really have a whole lot to say until the game is actually in my hands. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. If you liked the video, please make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And also let me know down below, what did you think of Motorfest? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Is it better or worse than Forza Horizon? Let me know in the comments down below. But either way, I really appreciate you watching. And until next time, mwah.